Well, I actually think that the root of our problem began after the 1997 election. I believe that was actually an election that, if we were very close to it between Fine Gael Labour and the Democratic Left at the time, and at that stage our country was lean, was competitive, was export driven, with a very good cost base and structure, and that always let go to the wind by an assumption that you would run the country on the taxes coming in from property. So by the time it got to the letter being written, the governor of the central bank had already been on Irish radio saying that the IMF were here. The die was already cast. There was a long lead into a decline and a disaster facing Ireland that was not recognised by the government of the day, that was not dealt with by the government of the day. And I suppose it's easy to be wise in hindsight, but that should never have been allowed to happen in the first place. And the drift between where we were at the end of '97 and what happened before that letter was written was an example of governments that lost control of managing the economy competently. In the past 3.5 years, we've moved an incredible distance, as we've said, in thanking the people for accepting the challenges. And so the letter, when it was written to the deceased minister, the die had already been cast. And for those in the public service will have seen that decline as the people did over a long period. The letter, I would assume, will be of interest to the Oireachtas committee dealing with the banking inquiry. We did change the legislation to allow for this kind of inquiry. It's up and running now, and the timescale is set for public hearings and so on. So I assume that the letter, which is a stark reminder of the cold and dark place that our country was in just a few years ago, is a reminder of what we cannot ever let happen again. And this government, with the new conditions that we've set in, independent fiscal council, the conditions that are set with the central bank and so on, the economy cannot roll backwards into that disastrous area again.
Well, Brian Lenihan is a personal friend. We shared the same constituency, and in many ways, I suppose what I reflect is on the tragedy of Brian Lenihan and the fact that he's no longer with us. I remember his journeys in the snow. That was a very snowy, cold winter, it just brings back all of that for me personally in a very poignant way. But let's be honest, the root of the problem, and that's what Triché's letter, as I understand it from the media this morning, basically says that the problem is caused by the bank guarantee, the unilateral blanket bank guarantee, and that because, in effect, through ELG, the ECB at that stage was financing Irish banks. In theory, the Irish government bank guarantee was standing behind those institutions, but in fact the state didn't have the resources to fund the guarantee that it foolishly gave. An absolutely, as I say, blanket bank guarantee. Patrick Honohan in his subsequent comments commented on that. I'm sure it's a poignant day, in particular in relation to the bad judgments that even the best of people and parties that are well motivated can make. And the guarantee seemed like a quick fix. In fact, it was a disaster. And that letter, and again from what I've heard and seen in the media, I think it was done in conjunction with what would ultimately become known as the Troika, that we all became far too familiar with. But I think what it does say to us now, two things. One is all of this correspondence will be of enormous interest to the banking inquiry. And I think, in fact, the fact that the ECB has released the correspondence will, in fact, make it much easier for people who were involved in those events to, in fact, perhaps feel freer as they go before the committee to, in fact, discuss fully what the interactions were in terms of the various parties.